Greetings, traveler. Let's say you want to become more creative as a creator. You want to have that ability available whenever you want, wherever you want, and not having to rely on any random factor. How exactly do you achieve that? Is it something you get from more spontaneity and having all these crazy ideas come up and capturing the moment, or is it something you build through consistency? This is something I want to talk about today. My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 10 years now. And earlier on in my career, as a game designer specifically, the topic of creativity was a big one. So in my day-to-day work, I had to come up with new features, new game systems, new rules, new players, new weapons, new everything, basically. And all these things are typically in the field of creativity. So back then I used to admire all the people and all the stories I used to hear about where they said, I got this crazy idea and I sat up all night and I worked like crazy and in the morning I had my masterpiece and everything was great after that. I had heard quite a few stories and at that point, and I thought, well, I get how that happens, right? When you get a new idea, you can get excited about it, you can start imagining it, all this energy propels you to sit down and do all these cool things. And of course, that would have a good result, right? And that's where the problems began for me. Because yes, that can happen. But what I found out is that, well, I'm going to go to the office the next day and I'm going to sit down at my desk and I'm going to be looking at the computer screen. And where is the creativity then? That is exactly the moment when I needed to happen. And I found out that it wasn't happening. And so I felt that it's not that I couldn't finish my job, but it's more that I couldn't do it to the high standard that I had for myself. So not just coming up with, normal derivative ideas, but some unique stuff, something exciting, something to excite me, first of all. So it wasn't until several years later when I started working on games that I wanted to work on and away from my job, so to speak. So in my own time, for my own sake. And there I came upon the same problem as well. I just couldn't sit down and channel this creative energy and make enough content and make it fun enough for me to begin with, much less for other people. So I struggled with this a lot. It felt like I had hit a wall and, how can I say that I'm doing this job and I can't even create a simple basis or a few simple ideas for a brand new game, right? I felt really bad. So instead, what I did is basically I was starting to go regularly to the gym at the same time. And I thought, well, when I go to the gym, it's not that I exactly try to lift all the weight of the world, right? There is a schedule and there is a specific amount of weight I'm supposed to lift every day and, whatever exercise, and there's a rhythm to it. And it has to happen so many times per week, and I would go at the same time. And yes, over 1 or 2 times I didn't see any difference, but over months and years, I did start seeing a difference. So it was at that point where I was fighting with this creativity problem. So I thought, well, I know one thing. The way I've been doing things up to now doesn't perform to my standard. I don't get the results that I like. So why don't I try something different? What if instead of capturing the moment of crazy creativity when it happens and trying to capitalize on that, what if instead I tried to summon it whenever I want it? And whenever I would try to summon it, I would get very, very little results. But what I noticed over time is that if I am consistent enough about it, the results that I do get every time I try to do something creative become better and better and better. And I want to break down for you what that process exactly looked like, for me at least. So let's take a creative task, right? Let's say there is a game and we already have 3 types of weapons. We have swords and axes and bows, and we want to make, I don't know, scythes or something. So you have to design what the difference is between scythes and all the other weapons. You have to come up with their unique abilities, how they're different, how they act in the game, what's cool about them, and all that stuff. So all these questions you have to sit down and answer one by one, or at least in my case, I had to answer them one by one. And the way I would do it, I notice, is I would go back to the original concept of the game and say, okay, what is this game supposed to be about? How does it function? What is it supposed to achieve for the player? What sort of experience? And then I would follow that list of questioning all the way down to how are sides different and what kind of particular rules do they need to perform as I expect them. So creativity is a great thing, but if you break it down, it simply answers the question, how should I make something so that it serves the overall purpose? And the creative part of it is that you don't just copy whatever exists already, you are forced to create something new, something that wasn't there before. But in order to do that, most people get inspiration from other things, right? From movies or from other games and so on, from real life experiences, maybe all of the above. So regardless of anyone's particular method, or my method at the time, I suppose, I found out that that is a process I do every time. So the more I do that process, the easier and the better I will become at executing it. And I was still struggling with this. So I thought, well, yeah, I can feel some improvement, but when I get this crazy idea and I start working on it like crazy, I get much better results, right? So what should I do? Should I follow the consistency path, or should I follow the intensity path, the capture the moment kind of approach? Well, I came up with this study that completely destroyed any doubts I had around this topic. And this study was around a university course where students had to make pottery. They had to make a single pot over a semester. And there was two groups in that study. One group was told that it doesn't matter how many pots they create, it doesn't matter how often they try to make pots. The only thing that mattered, and the only thing that would be graded for them, would be the quality of a single pot that they submitted for grading at the end of the semester. So based on that one pot, all of the grade would be decided. That was group one. Group two got told that they would have to create, I think it was something like 100 pots or something. So the only thing that would be graded is them completing 100 pots. And there was some basic requirement that the pots should, look like a pot, and it should hold together. It should be structurally sound and so on. But there was no specific directive on the quality of the pot, just that they complete 100 of them. At the end of the semester, the results. The group that was told to create 100 pots and did not get told anything about the quality of the pots made more pots and better pots than the group that got told to just create one really, really good looking one. And that really struck a chord with me. So the group that just was more consistent way outperformed the group that had to create just one perfect thing. And why is that? Humans get better through repetition, right? We learn through repetition, we exercise our muscles and our mind and so on. So we're just built this way. It's good if you have better guidelines, and it's good to capitalize on whatever creative energy you have. But if your goal is to be able to summon this skill at will, then summoning it when it's not available is basically the only thing I found that could train me to be able to do that eventually. So ever since then, I've been using this approach, and what I found as a result is a profound sense of calmness and peacefulness inside me, I suppose. So when I would think about having to create a new game or having to create a new feature or something, I would get really stressed because I would think, well, I have to make it really good, and it has to be really interesting, and it has to be amazing, and there can't be anything out there like it, because then I wasn't being creative, or I was just making something derivative. So that was the situation inside me before I started focusing on consistency. And nowadays, if I think about creating something new, because I've made new things so many times, both professionally and for my own game development, I find that it's not, the stress is just no longer part of the equation. I don't have to think, is the idea going to be good enough? Am I going to be able to do it? Not at all. I think, okay, what's the thing that I'm going to focus on this time? Okay, it's this idea. Why am I choosing this idea? Well, I'm choosing this idea because I've seen other games out there and they don't seem to have this. And if there was a game that has this feature or this style of gameplay, that would be really cool. So that's all I need to start chasing that direction. And then repeat that process every step of the way. When I create a new feature and when I flesh it out, and when I follow that series of questions of why is this different? Why is this interesting? How can I make it better? What requirements does it have? That's just a sequence of questions. And a sequence of questions, in my experience, is much more straightforward to navigate than this, oh my God, I have to create the best thing ever. Well, the way you create the best thing ever is by sitting down and slowly taking every single painstakingly delicate and specific step to make sure it's up to whatever standard you set for yourself. So anyway, that was my crazy experience with consistency versus intensity when it comes to creativity and how it helped me. Do go ahead and click the subscribe button, which should be here or so, here. And until next time, have fun.